When I was 2 years old, my family moved to San Diego, and my dad was in the Navy. When I was 8 years old, I started having seizures, and some articles just wanted to play down the epilepsy thing for some reason. Rick Harrison has finally talked about the death of his son, Adam, and what he said has shocked everyone. Fans know him as the smart star of Pawn Stars, but behind the deals and history lessons, his personal life has been full of deep pain. What happened to Adam? Why has Rick been quiet for so long? Because the president of the U.S. just called him to offer his help after hearing the truth. A childhood full of loss, Rick Harrison was born in March 1965 into a family that would soon go through more pain than most. His parents, Richard and Joanne, had 4 children, but not all of them would live to adulthood. Their older daughter, Sherry, was born with Down syndrome and tragically died at just 6 years old. The family was having a hard time, but no one could have imagined the heartbreak that was coming. One of their sons had severe epileptic seizures as a child, which kept him in bed for a lot of his early life. These health problems made him love reading and history, but they also cut him off from the world in a way that most kids never do. Before we go any further, it's clear that Rick's life has had many more tragedies than anyone ever knew. What happened next will blow your mind. In the early 1980s, the Harrison family moved to Las Vegas after a failed real estate business left them with no other options. I fell in love with reading. I remember my older brother telling my siblings and me, "Why are you guys watching TV? You should read more." It was here that life took a drastic turn. By age 17, his girlfriend got pregnant, and the two of them got ready for a path they had not planned. Sadly, their first child died in a miscarriage, but he and his girlfriend Kim were determined to move on, so they got married in 1982 and soon had their son, Corey. Just 2 years later, they had another son named Adam. But his personal happiness never seemed to last, and within a few short years, his marriage had fallen apart. He quickly remarried, trying to keep his family together while building a future in the pawn business that he and his father worked so hard to get a pawn license after years of trying. Their shop, Gold and Silver Pawn, became a mainstay in Las Vegas. But his personal life was anything but stable. His second marriage ended, and his relationship with his sons was far from perfect. "I'm really sick all the time," he said. "There's only one TV in the house," and remember this is 1973. "There are 3 TV stations, and there's definitely nothing for a kid to watch during the day." So while Corey grew up and joined the family business, Adam stayed out of the spotlight to avoid the fame that came with his father's TV success. But then the news that no one saw coming, Adam had died. The details of his death are still very private, but it's clear that it left his father with an unimaginable hole in his life. Losing a child is something that no parent should ever have to go through, and for someone who had already lost so much, Adam's death was a wound that could never truly heal, changed everything, and made it impossible to focus on business as usual. No amount of money, fame, or TV success could undo what had happened, and the weight of it all became too much to ignore. For years, he had built a persona of strength. He was the tough businessman who never backs down from a deal, but when it came to losing a son, there was no bargaining or negotiating with reality. Fans of Pawn Stars saw the tough businessman side of him, but few knew the depth of his personal struggles. As the news spread, people saw him not just as a businessman, but also as a father who had lost something much more valuable than any item in his pawn shop. It wasn't easy for him to finally talk about Adam's death. For years, he kept a lot of his personal life private, choosing to focus on his work rather than thinking about the bad things that had happened in the past. But grief has a way of catching up with people, no matter how hard they try to avoid it, and the pain of losing Adam was something that could no longer stay away. Buried, he wanted people to know the truth, but more than that, he wanted to honor his son's memory in a way that went beyond silent suffering. What makes this loss even more heartbreaking is how little is known about it. Some reports say that Adam had been dealing with personal demons, while others suggest that he had deeper problems that hadn't been solved. His father has chosen to keep some details private, probably to protect the family from even more public scrutiny. But one thing is certain: Adam's death changed everything. The man who used to look unbeatable on TV was now going through pain that he couldn't hide. No matter how successful he was, nothing could take away the pain that was coming, and soon his losses would be too great to ignore. Adam's death had an effect on more than just his family. It shook the whole Pawn Stars community. Fans who had watched the show for years were shocked by the news and couldn't believe that something so terrible could happen to someone they had watched for years. Over a decade later, even cast members who had worked with him for years felt the weight of the loss, knowing that their friend and coworker was going through something that no parent should ever have to go through. The pawn shop changed, and so did the man who worked there. The man behind the sharp wit and quick negotiations was still there, but the person behind them had been forever changed. Despite everything he has tried to keep going, running a business, keeping a TV show going, and dealing with his own grief is impossible. Even though tragedy has defined him, he refuses to let it define him. He has talked about the importance of family, the pain of law, and the need to keep going even when it seems impossible. But the loss of a child is something that never really goes away. It changes the way a person sees the world. At his core, he is a father who has been through the unimaginable and lost children more than once. While the world may see him as the face of Pawn Stars, he is a father. By 2005, this pawn shop wasn't just a small business. They were giving out millions of dollars in loans every year and making hundreds of thousands of dollars just in interest. It wasn't just old watches and dusty antiques. They also had sports memorabilia that would make collectors moan. Take Brock Williams' 2001 Super Bowl ring, for example. It became a last resort for desperate gamblers who wanted to sell their valuables just to get enough gas money to get home, because my dad is in Vietnam and my mom is trying to sell real estate on the side. We have a house, but we're moving my aunt and her kids in because my uncle is in Vietnam and just to pay the rent. This crazy mix of rare finds, quick cash, and questionable decisions caught the attention of the History Channel. And that's how Pawn Stars was born. The show premiered in July 2009 thanks to Brent Montgomery and Colby Gaines. Were looking for an interesting pawn shop in Las Vegas in 2008. What they found was a family-owned business just a couple of miles off the Strip that was already famous after being in a PBS documentary in 2001. The man at the center of it all had been waiting years for a show about his shop. He even showed up in a 2003 episode of Insomniac with Dave Vell, but that didn't do well. HBO got the first pitch, but they didn't feel it. Instead, they suggested the original title, Pawn History, wasn't very catchy, so they changed it to Pawn Stars, which was a cheeky nod to something a little less PG. Filming took place at the famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, Nevada. Jewelry was their main business, but people brought in everything from antique weapons to pop culture memorabilia. At any given time, their inventory held more than 10,000 items, so every episode was a gamble on what might show up next to keep things interesting. To keep things running smoothly, they closed the shop down while filming and only let a few approved customers in. This strategy paid off big time. The Harrison family became reality TV stars, and by 2011, Pawn Stars was the History Channel's biggest hit. It was even the second most watched reality show, just behind Jersey Shore. That same year, the shop's co-owner decided to cash in on his fame by writing a book called Pawn Deals, Steals, and My Life at the Gold and Silver. By June, it had climbed to number 22 on the New York Times bestseller list. Even though his business was growing and people were watching, his personal life was falling apart in ways that no one saw coming. Pawn Stars took over reality TV, and his personal life was just as eventful. He ended his second marriage to Tracy and quickly got engaged to Dana, ending another divorce. He didn't just enjoy the show's success, he leaned into it, making guest appearances on shows like iCarly and The Middle, when he and Dina got married in Laguna Beach and 3 stepdaughters. He didn't miss a business chance and became the face of the MicroTouch One razor in 2014, appearing in TV commercials. That same year, the History Channel decided to make the most of the Pawn Stars brand by launching United Stuff of America, a show that featured historical artifacts and gave viewers another reason to watch. Later that same year, they tried their hand at a game show called Pornography, where he, Corey, and Chumley competed against other contestants. TV deals and product endorsements weren't the only things Harrison did in his life. In June 2018, his father, Richard Harrison, died, which was a tragedy that affected him both personally and professionally. He told his hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers that his father had died of Parkinson's disease, which was a shock to them all. The History Channel released a heartfelt statement mourning the loss of one of their biggest stars, but Harrison had to deal with more than just grief. Take full charge of the family business and everything will change. As of 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic was wreaking havoc on businesses all over the world, including Pawn Stars. Lockdowns, restrictions, and economic uncertainty turned what had been a successful business into a major challenge. He had to deal with financial setbacks, supply chain problems, and a big drop in foot traffic. My name is Rick Harrison, and I have a little TV show that's been on for 10 years and is shown in 150 countries and 38 languages. The business was built on in-person transactions, but all of a sudden, customers weren't showing up. While the pawn shop remained a cultural landmark, Pawn Stars' golden days seemed to be fading. The show had been around for years, thriving on its mix of rare items, tough negotiations, and quirky characters. But with changing times and unexpected problems, could the team keep the empire running? That was the real question. There was more competition because of the rise of online reselling platforms and digital marketplaces. Why go to a pawn shop when you could sell your things on eBay or Facebook Marketplace with just a few clicks? Pawn Stars made the business look exciting, but it wasn't what it used to be. The shop's legacy still stood strong, but the landscape had changed. For example, when times were tough during the global health crisis, you might have thought pawn shops would be booming, because when money is tight, people usually trade in valuables to get by. But surprise, that didn't really happen at first. There was a small boost in business, but it went away quickly. Even the famous owner of the gold and silver pawn shop had to admit things weren't looking good. In an interview, he talked about how the pandemic turned his business upside down because people were only going out to get necessities and pawning off collectibles wasn't exactly at the top of their list. Things got even worse when in early 2012, he had to partially close his shop. The tourist section, which was a big part of his business, had to close for a whole month, but they kept the loan business going. Money wasn't coming in like it used to, and the numbers were bad. The shop makes over $1 million a year, but in 2020, they only made $38,000. That's a $38,000 drop. As if the financial hit wasn't bad enough, his personal life was also falling apart. Even though he was famous and wealthy, problems still came up. This time, the biggest fight was with his own family. It was a court battle that no one saw coming. At the same time, he was trying to keep his shop open and deal with the end of his third marriage. He and his wife had become too different, and divorce papers were filed just months after they got married in September. Some people say it was bad timing, while others say it was clear from the start. Either way, it was another problem he didn't need during an already difficult time. When things looked like they couldn't get any worse, a legal battle broke out in his own family. It wasn't just any lawsuit. His mother was taking him to court with serious accusations. His mother said that while she was sick, Rick had her sign away most of her ownership of the pawn shop without knowing it. If this is true, it's a serious betrayal. To make things even worse, Rick's mother wasn't just suing him. She said he had been doing dirty business and accused him of it, withholding financial records, including hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and silver. If those accusations were true, it painted a very different picture of the man who built his reputation on honesty and trust. Fans of the show had always seen him as a straight shooter, but this lawsuit cast serious doubt on that image. To put this in context, his father died in 2018 and his mother took over the pawn shop, but it wasn't a smooth transition. The change turned into a battle over money, and it ended up in court, dragging Rick's reputation through the mud. People began to wonder if he was really the family man everyone thought he was, or if there was more to the story. And here's the catch. This wasn't even the end of Rick's problems. After the legal drama with his mom, he got married again, hoping for a fresh start, but problems kept coming up. If history taught him anything, it was that Rick Harrison has always been the face of Pawn Stars, but behind the scenes, his life has been anything but smooth. His family drama started when his mother Joanne accused him of cutting off the payments she used to get from her late husband's business. Rick, you like to argue a lot. I don't like to argue a lot, but you have for years. Rick allegedly stopped sending her the money in 2020, which is when things got nasty. Joanne went to court to get her money back, and fans began to wonder if Rick's wealth was in danger. Things got even worse when Joanne filed a restraining order against Rick, which stopped him from selling off family assets or moving money around. If this was true, Rick had full control over their business, while his sick mother was struggling with her health. Joanne, who was over 80 years old, said she was afraid she wouldn't be able to pay her reportedly $155,000 a month medical bills. She couldn't believe that her son was living the high life as a TV star while she was worried about keeping the lights on. Rick quickly fired back, saying the lawsuit was false and that his mother was being manipulated by others. As if the legal battle wasn't bad enough, Rick's son Adam was found dead in his home in January 2024. 39 years old, the cause a deadly mix of fentanyl, and someone said they hadn't seen him in days. And when the landlord went to check on him, it was too late. The medical examiner said it was an accident, but that didn't make it any easier for Rick to deal with. He posted a picture of himself and Adam on Instagram and said, "You'll always be in my heart." Adam's older brother Corey also posted a picture of the two of them as kids and called Adam Bubba. Adam never featured on Pawn Stars, but he did work at Gold and Silver Pawn before becoming a plumber. Rick, who was still upset about what happened, used the time to talk about the fentanyl crisis and call for stronger action to stop the epidemic that was spreading through the country, and well-known people like Donald Trump Jr. sent their sympathies. It was unbearable to lose a child. Was Adam's death really what it seemed like? Or is there something deeper that Rick Harrison has yet to reveal? Let us know what you think, and don't forget to like and follow for more.